Ellie and I met in college and instantly clicked. When we started dating, I wasn't very assertive. It was her interest and desire in me that helped me value myself more and overcome my insecurities. I was just a hard-working, nerdy guy who hadn't had much luck with women, so I was amazed that someone as smart and beautiful as Ellie was interested in me. Both of us were ambitious, and we each built our own small businesses by the time we graduated from college. After graduation, we moved in together and got married a year later. Our marriage felt very strong to me. We faced family tragedies, professional challenges, and various disagreements, but we always worked through them, and I believed it made us stronger. Ellie had a large social circle that included many men, but it never concerned me because she didn't do anything suspicious. All social outings seemed to be with a mix of friends, and I trusted her closest friends. As our 10-year anniversary approached, I decided to discuss the topic of starting a family. Early in our relationship, we compromised on the size of our family. I wanted kids, and she wanted none or at most one, so we agreed on having one child. Now, 10 years into our marriage, feeling economically secure and thinking our relationship was healthy, I brought up the topic. I can't help but wonder if my bringing up this subject triggered the chain of events that followed. A little over 3 months ago, she told me she was going out with her friends to have some fun. She explained that she needed to unwind because she was getting stressed about me asking about having kids again. That night, she returned home at 4 a.m., and from that day on, our bedroom became completely dormant. In our relationship, Ellie had always initiated closeness, as much as I did, if not more. On average, I'd say she initiated more often than me. Even during rare periods when we were dealing with travel, I can't recall us going more than 5 days without some form of closeness. She starts going out more, becoming protective of her phone, and avoiding me, things I had never seen from her before. After about 3-4 weeks of this, I talk to my best friend Omar, and he directs me to Reddit, where I start reading about similar situations. Eventually, I realize I need to do something about this because it's affecting my mood. I don't just want to trust her. I like trusting my wife, but now I feel the need to trust her. Reluctantly, I decide to check her calls and texts on her phone, feeling like a complete monster for violating her privacy. I discover that one of the new people in her social circle is an old high school flame from before we were together. The more I investigate, the more I uncover. I believe the fact that I had always trusted her completely made her complacent about hiding the affair better. I discovered that during that party a month ago he attended, and they spent the whole night catching up and ended up kissing, not even bothering to hide it from their friends, conveniently going to the bathroom together. Up until this point, I had been feeling a huge pit of anxiety in my stomach, trying to hold on to the image of the woman I thought I had married, fooling myself in a way. But now, the anger and sadness became overwhelming, especially since she seemed oblivious to my sudden indifference. She didn't notice that I had stopped making romantic gestures, and I felt like I was falling apart inside. Finally, a month ago, I decided to catch them in the act. I told Ellie I was going to visit my cousin for the weekend, who lives 3 hours away, but instead, I stayed with Omar, who has been helping me record and copy everything. I waited, and yep, she brought him to our house, to our bed. I sneaked into the house, made my way to our room, and the sounds left no doubt. They were so into it, they didn't even notice me standing there at the door, recording them with my phone. It felt like something inside me just shattered, like my soul snapped so hard I could hear it. My veins turned icy cold, and it felt like a massive weight had been dropped on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I went numb. The next part is kind of hazy, to be honest. According to Omar, who I had brought as a witness, it seems I walked up to them, pulled the guy off the bed, and then Omar had to pull me off of him. I vaguely remember Omar holding me down on the ground. After that, there was the usual chaos of getting caught. I decided to cut off all contact for 5 weeks and started working with a lawyer, preparing for the worst. Omar acted as her go-between during that time because I just couldn't bring myself to talk to her. And you know what? Ellie reached out to my family and told them that we are having problems. Yeah, right. After the 5 weeks of not contacting each other, we finally met and talked. She was sorry and took full responsibility for her actions, saying it wasn't my fault. We decided to give marriage counseling a try to see if there's any hope of salvaging our relationship. It's hard to believe, But even after everything, I still love her. I hate myself for caring about her well-being and happiness. And now, I'm questioning our whole relationship. Has she been cheating before and I just didn't see it or chose to ignore it because I trusted her too much? Update. After reading all the responses and messages, I took the weekend to think it all over and made up my mind. I realized that I couldn't live with myself if I stayed with her. Trying to work it out would mean sacrificing my self-respect. I also didn't want to be in a relationship where I had to constantly be on the lookout for betrayal. So, I decided to end it all. Here's how it happened. On Monday, I woke up to a surprising sight. My Johnson was at full attention, something that hadn't happened since I found out about Ellie's affair. It was like my body was saying, we're going to end this today and move on to something new. I even laughed about it, and Omar and his wife came to check on me, thinking I was having a breakdown. I got up, got ready, and called Ellie's dad to set up a talk. We met about an hour before our marriage counseling session. Surprisingly, I felt calm on the drive there, though deep down, emotions were still swirling inside me. We met at a cozy breakfast place near his house and sat down. Ellie's dad is a good man, lighthearted, funny, and level-headed. I thanked him for how he and his wife treated me all these years and apologized for having to have this talk with him. He listened patiently, but as I explained why I was going to divorce his daughter, he looked down, and I could sense his disappointment and anger, not at me, but at Ellie. He told me he understood, and I asked him not to tell Ellie as I was going to talk to her soon. He agreed, we shook hands, and he wished me well. It hurt to shatter his image of her. I wondered if I should have asked him to take care of her, but I reminded myself that he's her dad, and of course, he'll care for her. It's no longer my responsibility to look after her. She's a grown woman now. After that, I headed to our scheduled marriage counseling session. I spent all day on Sunday practicing what I would say to Ellie and how to say it. I wanted to make sure my emotions wouldn't take over during the conversation. I sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes and prayed, something I hadn't done in a while since this all started. When we sat down for the session, Ellie was wearing one of the dresses I used to love seeing her in. For a brief moment, I almost forgot everything. But then the strong disgust and anger took over, and any attraction I had faded away. I let the counselor begin like in our previous sessions, but after about 10 minutes of them talking, I interrupted. Excuse me, I have a few things I need to say to Ellie, and I wanted to say them here with a neutral third party. If I'm interrupted at any point, I will simply leave, and that's it. Ellie, I've had some realizations and I want to express them. I don't feel the need to know if this was the only time you cheated, because it doesn't change things for me. Knowing how long it went on or how many times it happened won't make a difference either. Even if there was a so-called good reason behind it, the why doesn't change the fact that it happened. The important thing here is that you did cheat. These are the facts that matter to me now. It's evident that you never wanted to have children with me. At this, Ellie opens her mouth to interject, and I started walking to the door, so she immediately backed off. You were going to string me along for however long it would take. You were going to cheat on me sooner or later. This is when the waterworks started to open up for her. I've felt so disrespected and unloved by your actions. The counselor begins to look like she's about to interject, and I respond by taking another step towards the door, which ends that. I want you to understand that my lawyer is already filing for divorce, and your father now knows the entire truth of what has been happening. Don't contact me anymore. From now on, our only communication will be through our lawyers. These are our final words to each other. Goodbye. I walked to the door and left. As soon as I closed the door, I heard her wailing loudly. She rushed out of the office, trying to stop me, apologizing and begging for a second chance, saying we can start a family. She was crying hysterically the whole time. I managed to push past her and get in my car. The emotions I had been suppressing started to overwhelm me, and I was barely holding it together. I drove to my parents' house and sent the planned text message to Ellie's best friend's husbands. When I got home, my dad was at the store, but my mom could tell something was wrong with me. She's always been able to read me like a book. I told her and Dad that I needed to share something important, so we sat down and waited. About 30 minutes later, Dad arrived. I poured everything out, and with each word, it felt like an ocean of emotions was emptying. and all the pain was pouring out of me. When I finished talking to my dad, he just held me, and I cried into his shirt for a solid 20 minutes. When it all ended, I felt drained, but also strangely at peace. I've arranged for Omar to receive a Harley he's been eyeing for a while. He's been more than a friend to me, and I want to be as good a friend to him as he has been to me. I can't wait to see his face when he gets it. I think this will be my last post because it's the end of this story. I want to thank all of you. I never thought I'd find such sound and sane advice from strangers on the internet. I know there's a long road ahead, and I'll still need individual counseling to deal with the aftermath of this debacle and rebuild my ability to trust. I have to hope that little by little, all this pain, sadness, and anger will go away, like Roto-Rooter for my soul, if I do the work. Now, the rest of my life begins, and I can honestly say I'm looking forward to it. Story 2. My wife and I, both 37 years old, have been married for 12 years, and we've been together for 16 since we met in college. We have a 6-year-old kid, and we recently bought our first house after saving for a long time. While our relationship has had its ups and downs, we've managed to make it last. I'm not even sure what to consider D-Day anymore. The truth is so unclear. Was it the first time I suspected something was going on months ago? Or was it last week, last night, or perhaps even today? Maybe D-Day was last year. It began like these things usually do. My wife staying up late on her phone, texting someone. It seemed a bit odd to me, as she had been secretive about her phone, but I had a chance to check it while she was in the shower. I discovered she was flirting quite openly with a coworker named Jack Harkness. It seemed like a new friendship, but it was more daring and even suggestive than I was used to from her. I confronted her about it, and she got defensive, saying it was just a coworker, and she didn't think she did anything wrong. She got mad at me for snooping. A week later, while my wife is getting ready in the morning, her locked phone on the nightstand receives a notification from Jack at 5 in the morning. I don't want to wake up my son, so I avoid confronting her. Confrontation is not my strong suit anyway. Later that afternoon, I talk to my therapist about it, and he advises me to confront her and ask about it. He suggests I ask to see her phone. So, when she gets home, I ask her to show me her phone. She refuses, claiming her right to privacy. I question her about whether she's been talking to Jack, and she says he messaged her maybe 2 or 3 times. I insist on seeing the messages. She denies anything significant is going on and suggests I need help to overcome my suspicions. I tell her I will seek help, but first I want to see her phone. Eventually, she agrees. It turns out there have been 100 messages exchanged over the last 2 weeks, more than she initially admitted, though they seem innocent. Nevertheless, the fact that she lied bothers me. We decide to go to counseling again. We had gone previously when our child was born for about 6 months. The counselor outlines a plan for reconciliation, but it requires my wife to cut off communication with Jack and my commitment to take divorce off the table. However, my wife claims she doesn't like the counselor anymore, and we never return to therapy. Perhaps D-Day was last week. My wife spends the morning texting her friends, and I notice her unlocked PIN. My suspicions continue to bother me, and I can't shake it off. I get a brief moment when she leaves her phone unattended, and I unlock it. I see that she's still texting him, but now his name is listed as Harkness J. I don't have enough time to read the messages. I confront her and ask if she's still talking to Jack. She admits that she is, claiming they are just friends, and since I never asked her not to talk to him, given they work together, she doesn't think there's an issue. I don't request to see the messages, and she doesn't offer. At this point, would it even make a difference? Will it help? Maybe D-Day was last night. All day yesterday, she seemed upset and avoided me. Last night, while she's asleep, I take her phone from the nightstand. I feel my heart pounding with fear. What if she wakes up? Why am I snooping? What am I hoping to find? I'm filled with shame and anxiety. I attempt to enter the PIN, but it's incorrect. Her new PIN is longer now. At this point, I decide to sleep on the couch. When she wakes up and comes downstairs, she asks if everything is okay. I tell her I have a headache, which is true, and I'm feeling nauseous, also true. She questions if I have a fever, and I assure her I don't. It's just a sinus headache. She wants me to come back to bed and asks what's bothering me. I tell her that I think she's having an affair. She denies it, saying she would never do that. Then she asks if it's about that other guy, and I question why she flirts with him. Her response is that it's just fun, and that's where the conversation ends. My headache overwhelms me, and I tell her I want to sleep. I guess today is D-Day. I'm so tired, both emotionally and physically. I'm exhausted from the slow trickle of half-truths. I'm tired of dealing with the drama surrounding her cell phone. I'm worn out from the constant paranoia, always feeling like I'm only half right, and ending up feeling like a jerk. I don't know what to say when she gets home. Confrontation is not my strong suit. I just want to put an end to this nightmare. Update. I talked to my wife and let her know that I'm ready to move on and want a divorce. She tried to downplay her relationship with her coworker, saying it's ridiculous to want a divorce over that. She offered to show me the text messages between them, but I was doubtful about their authenticity. It's easy to delete messages these days, especially if they're not regular SMS texts from the carrier, and these weren't. The messages I saw were not too scandalous, but still not appropriate. She messaged him multiple times, and he was persistently flirtatious, even over innocent things. On Thanksgiving Day, she texted him, "The turkey is in the oven," and he replied, "That's so hot." Another time, about a week ago, she texted him close to bedtime, saying she was going to have another drink because it had been a long day, and he responded, "I am so turned on right now. I'm feeling frustrated because I'm stuck in a strange place right now. There's evidence of inappropriate behavior, and she's been hiding this relationship and gaslighting me. However, what I've seen isn't necessarily concrete proof. The texts are inappropriate, but not explicitly, and they don't entirely make sense in context. While there's nothing explicit from her end, she also wasn't shutting down his advances. She pleaded with me to change my mind, but I refused. She begged me once more, and again, I declined. I remained resolute. She begged me repeatedly, at least a dozen times. Finally, she asked for just 2 counseling sessions. At that moment, I gave in. I said, "All right, we'll do a couple of sessions, but if I'm not convinced that we can make it work, I'm ending things." Update. As I mentioned before, my wife asked me to reconsider and attend marriage counseling. I agreed, but mainly because I needed some time to think about my next steps. Meanwhile, I've been active on this subreddit, trying to support others while also sorting out my own thoughts. My wife has been acting like everything is normal. She's been very affectionate, constantly wanting to kiss and cuddle, but I feel frustrated and declined her advances. During our arguments about the issue, when I told her that I think she's cheating on me and she asked why, I mentioned the lies, the deleted messages, and how she's treating the privacy of her friendship with this person as sacred. She got upset, feeling insulted and not understanding why I can't trust her. She cried and said she didn't deserve to be treated this way. Since I don't have concrete evidence of anything beyond an emotional affair, I felt I had to give my wife a chance to come clean and work on reconciliation. I came up with 2 simple requirements for me to stay and work with the marriage counselor. Stop communicating with the other person involved in the affair. Agree to unlock her phone and let me see all the messages exchanged between her and him. At first, she agreed to both conditions. However, she has since changed her stance. She is still texting with him, claiming it's just friendly, but she won't allow me to see the messages or anything else on her phone. On Friday, I contacted a divorce lawyer, and I have a meeting scheduled for the end of the month. I was hoping to gather evidence of something more than just flirtatious text messages. In my state, being at fault matters during separation, so that could be helpful. I'm considering discussing the situation with the AP's spouse, although I don't have concrete proof of inappropriate behavior between my wife and her husband. It's more like, look, they're being inappropriate, but maybe it's worth telling her. I'm ready to move on. This marriage seems beyond repair. Update. After my last update, I received feedback suggesting that I should be more straightforward with my spouse about the situation. I have already contacted a lawyer, and we're currently working on the divorce paperwork. In the meantime, I decided to reach out to the AP's spouse and share only the known truth with her. I wanted to let her draw her own conclusions and avoid any potential legal issues from the AP for slander. The other spouse reacted wonderfully. She took the news seriously and with concern for my situation. She admitted feeling nervous and unsure about how to handle it. She said she would talk to her husband, and I wished her well. Of course, my wife found out about this, and she was furious. She accused me of ruining their marriage, destroying her friendship, and even threatening her job. She claimed not to recognize me anymore and expressed serious concern about my mental health. Throughout this process, I've remained very calm and have been practicing the divorce 180 approach. I told her that I feel fine and understand her anger, but there's nothing more to discuss. I did what I did, and I can't change the past. Not that I want to. She has come home from work in tears, saying there are rumors circulating at her workplace. She blames me for the rumors, even though I haven't spoken to anyone at her job about our situation. If there are rumors, they must be coming from the AP. She should be angry with him. She also told me that she spoke with the AP and that they plan to reconcile their marriage and be okay. She asked me not to talk to the AP's spouse anymore. Now that we're fully committed to getting a divorce, she has become petty and vindictive. She calls me names like an a-hole and accuses me of being lazy, apathetic, and a liar. She claims that she was the only one who truly cared in the marriage and makes me feel like a monster for supposedly breaking up the AP's marriage, even though she contradicted herself earlier. At this point, the AP's spouse sent me one last message saying, "If I had seen what you saw, I would have told you too. You don't need to apologize for anything." I have decided to keep these messages as evidence for my divorce lawyer. Overall, I feel like I'm handling this situation quite well. My wife's true colors are showing, and that makes it easier for me to proceed with the divorce. However, I expect the divorce process itself to be challenging. She's trying to manipulate and gaslight me, attempting to make me look like a terrible person. In response, I'm staying patient and perceptive, which seems to deflate her ego. The more she behaves this way, the more determined I am to pursue the divorce. Instead of wasting my energy trying to make her happy, I'm focusing on building a stronger relationship with my son, which has been very fulfilling. I'm mentally exhausted from all the lies and denials. The thought of spending the holiday season with a bitter spouse doesn't excite me, but I know this phase will pass eventually. Since my last post, things have been a whirlwind of craziness and chaos. If you're dealing with an emotionally offensive spouse, I recommend reading the article, "Mind Duck Has 3 Stations." Just today, my wife's emotions have been all over the place. She went from being fine with the divorce, but blaming me for telling the AP's spouse, to suggesting cohabitation after the divorce for the sake of our child, to asking if I would reconsider the divorce, and then back to claiming she was the only one trying to work on the marriage. She's also concerned about how we'll handle the financial aspect. It's been a lot to handle in just one day. Update. A couple of weeks ago, I informed my wife that I want a divorce, and my decision remains firm. We have a 6-year-old son, and I'm now researching co-parenting to ensure I'm there for him and his needs. My wife has repeatedly asked me to reconsider, suggesting there might be something worth saving in our marriage, and accusing me of selfishly tearing the family apart. However, recently, she proposed a different approach. She asked me to reconsider the divorce, not for the purpose of reconciling our relationship, but to raise our son together while living in the same house, even though we wouldn't be a couple anymore. She referred to it as a parenting marriage. I have reservations and concerns about this idea. I worry it could lead to financial complications once we eventually decide to get divorced. Also, if I were to start a new relationship, it might be uncomfortable for someone new to have me living with my ex-spouse, even if it's just in a co-parenting setup. Additionally, I fear that this arrangement might not grant me the level of independence I desire in my life and in caring for our son. Our past issues regarding parenting and communication won't magically disappear just because we label ourselves as divorced. I'd appreciate any thoughts on this matter. I've only found articles from marriage counselors praising the parenting marriage technique, and I haven't come across any downsides mentioned. Every day, she keeps begging me to reconsider. I've been distant and unresponsive because some of her behavior has been terrible. She even came up to me holding our family photo from last Christmas, asking, "Isn't this worth it?" But it's important to note that she hasn't apologized for her actions. According to her, she did nothing wrong. Still, I'm trying to remain emotionally detached. She's been ignoring my request to go to mediation for the separation agreement, or let my lawyer handle it. In our state, there are 2 paths to divorce, either through a separation agreement or living apart for 1 year. We're still living together because I'm the one paying the mortgage. Today, She told me she'll sign the separation agreement, but on the condition that I allow her to tell our son that I am the one responsible for the divorce. I don't think that kind of condition can even be part of the agreement. Isn't this a manipulative move on her part? What should I do now? Our first talk about divorce was in June. I expressed my desire to end the marriage, but she asked for time to reconsider. After more evidence of her behavior came to light, I had the second talk right after Thanksgiving, making it clear that I'm done and want a divorce. I reached out to a lawyer, and so did she. However, the divorce process has now stalled. In Maryland, without a separation agreement, the only option for divorce is to live apart for 1 year. On Monday, my wife dropped a bombshell on me. She insisted on a separation agreement, but with the condition that I tell our 7-year-old son that I wanted to leave and wasn't willing to fix things. I told her it wasn't appropriate to have that conversation with him. Last night we talked again. She now says she'll agree to the separation agreement only if we go to 3 months of couples therapy because she needs to know the why of the divorce. I've been clear about what went wrong, including the lying and emotional affair. However, she doesn't think those are good enough reasons. I've also been discussing with my individual therapist the patterns of offense in our relationship, and honestly, there's no chance of me returning to this marriage. I suggested a compromise, agreeing to couples counseling after the agreement is in place. I thought it would give her closure. I need the security of the document first, so I can freely express myself in therapy without her manipulating the process. She called this unfair, believing that the money spent on drafting the agreement could be used for therapy to save the marriage. Do I need to leave now? The original plan was for me to keep the house since I can afford the mortgage. I'm considering moving to an apartment in my son's school district and offering to pay half of the bills on the current house until we can sell it if it comes to that. My soon-to-be ex-wife, STBXW, and I are separating. She's been hesitant to work on a separation agreement, saying she needs more time to think. It's been over 6 months now, and she's been focused on reconciling, while I've been hoping she would change her mind. Recently, my lawyer pushed me to take action. We have a school-aged child, which makes things more complex. We currently own a home we bought 2 years ago. We're both on the title, but I'm the only one on the mortgage loan. I cover the mortgage and all household bills. She earns 6 figures but only pays for groceries and health care. But with estimated child support, I won't be able to afford the mortgage and save enough. So I've started looking at apartments and reached out to a realtor. However, I can't move out until we have a signed separation agreement with a custody plan. I want to start selling the home, but she refuses to sell it right now because she's not ready to leave. Yesterday, she requested a discussion about the finances of me keeping the house after separation. She wanted to review my income and the mortgage to explore options. I declined, stating that she has no right to dictate my living arrangements post-separation. This made her cry, claiming she's doing what's best for our child. I feel stuck. I can't leave, I can't stay, and I can't sell the house. I spoke to my lawyer, and she'll prepare a separation agreement, but if my wife refuses to sign, I'm uncertain about my next steps. I'm still going through a separation with my soon-to-be ex-wife, STBXW, which I initiated months ago. I can't move out of the house until I have a signed custody agreement. My plan is to leave in March. Sunday night, my wife installed security cameras inside the house, which record 24/7 to an external device. I noticed them on Monday and put them away. She reinstalled them overnight. Today, I removed them again and informed her in writing that I object to being recorded, as our state, Maryland, requires consent from both parties for audio recording. She claimed they were set to only record video, not audio. The cameras don't belong to my wife, they belong to a friend of hers. The friend asked me to return them to my spouse, so I did. I'm worried about this situation. I don't want to be recorded, and I fear it might be used against me in some way. Currently, I work from home while my first-grader son does distance learning. In my state, dealing with divorce and custody is challenging. They prefer parents not to divorce, so they make it complicated. There are 2 paths for divorce, a contested one requiring a year of separation, and an uncontested one needing a signed separation agreement, which is faster if both parties agree. I can't move out of the house without having some custody arrangement in place. Now, it's almost a year into the divorce, and my ex is prolonging the separation agreement process. adding unreasonable custody demands, and not making decisions about the house. I'm unsure if she wants to sell it or buy me out of it. Because she's delaying the separation agreement, I've considered filing for a contested divorce. But even then, due to COVID, the next custody hearing date wouldn't be for 4-5 months. So I'm stuck here, as long as she wants, and I hate it. I feel stuck. I want to leave, but I'm afraid it might affect my custody situation. I'm exhausted from being the one paying all the bills, especially when she earns as much as I do. I'm tired of constantly being criticized by her for everything I do. She tells me that all my efforts are wrong, and she even calls me unattractive, lazy, and uncaring. I'm just really worn out.